Hi everybody, and welcome to TMI Live number 24. Coming up to number 25 already, which is remarkable. I'm back in the scriptorium, Eric McLuhan's library. It's Tuesday night, 9 p.m., the time when I go live to tell you where I'm at in my inventory of Eric McLuhan's library. Where I'm at is somewhere exciting. I am this many, 7 books away from finishing, I'll move the camera so you can see, the first part of my inventory, which started here, went down and over and up and over, and over here and up and down and up and down and up and down and back to the bottom, and I'm currently at the last of that shelf there. And then I'm moving across the aisle to the other half of this bookcase in here. And that's 16 or 18 or so shelves of Eric's McLuhan collection. And it's mostly books by Marshall McLuhan, with some of Dad Eric's books mixed in, and some books by other people on or about McLuhan or related to, with some other things thrown in. And this is something I've been working toward this whole time I've been doing this inventory, and I'm really looking forward to, because there's some amazing stuff in there. I've shown you little hints of it here and there. And actually the items I'm going to show you tonight are related because they come from that shelf. I guess I'll start with this. You know, when I started doing this live video, I thought I would just record what I'm doing while I'm doing the inventory. But I don't know whether it's a pressure to serve up something more interesting or more valuable or something. But I've tried to do a little bit more than that. So the whole reason for me doing this in the first place was just to share what I'm doing, because the whole point of it is to bring it out into the world and out of this building. And when I did the inventory of Marshall's books, I kept a blog, inscriptorium.wordpress.com, where I shared some of the interesting things I came across. But, you know, it takes a couple hours to craft a good blog, and pictures and words, and when I can just hit record and go live for 15 minutes and tell you what I'm up to and what's been interesting. So that's what I'm going to do. Down at the end of that shelf I pointed out, I guess this one here, nope, down here, I found a file folder, and it was marked in my grandmother's handwriting, Autobiography, which obviously piqued my interest. And this place, I like to say, is lousy with treasures, McLuhan tidbits. You never know what you're going to come across, and sometimes it's some amazing things. And obviously I'm biased because I find this stuff fascinating, but I know there's a couple people out there who do too, so we can all geek out together. Anyway, I found this file called Autobiography, and in it was a 2-page autobiography by Marshall McLuhan, and a copy of it anyway. It looked like it had been done sort of maybe for a magazine or something. There was no date on it. The only reference to a date is he talks about a house full of teenagers, which would date it to the mid-later 60s. My Uncle Michael, who's the youngest of the kids, my dad was the oldest, would have been a teenager then. So it's from the mid to late 60s. And it's really interesting because it's 2 short pages, typed pages, but it covers his early life in Manitoba and the effect of the prairies on his upbringing and the formation of his character and mind, to going over to England and that experience on a cattle boat because it was the Depression and he didn't have any money, to his learning over there, to coming back, and it's a really fascinating thing. I'll read you one paragraph here, one of eight paragraphs. During the past century, art has revealed that the changing environment is not perceptible to unaided human attention. Throughout all human time, men have been engaged in conscious awareness of the preceding environment, which presents itself as a nostalgic art form. The current environment creates an overload of sensation that obliterates pattern and form. My study of literature became an aid to the perception that led me to undertake the task of understanding the relation between culture and technology. So that's it. Two pages with a nice photo of Marshall on the back and a cover. I have my friend Lee Nashe, shout out to Lee, of Invisible Publishing in Picton, Ontario, a great little press that focuses on Canadian poetry and literature. She agreed to help me put this thing together. My Uncle Michael of the McLuhan estate supplied the photograph and signed off on it. And we've done 333 copies, a short edition. That number seemed appropriate. And they're for sale for $10 plus shipping. So if you want one, email me, andrew@themcluhaninstitute.com, or get in touch some way, and tell me you want one and give me your mailing address and we'll figure it out. 5 people already have since I announced it today, and that's awesome. So thank you all. The money helps me keep doing all this interesting stuff and helps cover costs for things like the Media Ecology Association annual convention, which is happening this week in Toronto. I'll see some of you there, including you, Amanda. I see you. Hey. Where I'm giving a couple presentations, one on why study media, which should be a lot of fun. It won't be boring, I hope. And I'm also going to be presenting Eric McLuhan's last speech, Media Ecology in the 21st Century, the recording of it from Columbia from last year. And I'll also be doing something with my friend Richard Altman's film McLuhan Unclaimed, I Am a Winnipeggian, or the latest iteration of it, which he's worked hard on, and I'm looking forward to it because it's a really awesome thing. It's a really great look at Marshall as formed in the West and Winnipeg, which is pretty cool. I was going to actually skip ahead. So the way I do the inventory is there are often things on top of the shelves, and I look at those first. And on top of the shelves that I'm moving into next, the McLuhan shelves, which, like I said, 16 or 18 shelves. It covers Marshall's output from his earliest days to the last things he published before he died, to beyond to stuff that's come out since. And we don't have a copy of everything he ever wrote or published, but we have a lot of things. A lot of things are marked up by Eric with notes, annotations, marginalia, pertinent thoughts. Really exciting stuff that I'm looking forward to reading myself, although it's not like I have time to read every page, and to share with you guys. So I'm glad you could hear along for the ride. The first thing that's upstairs, up on top of those shelves, is this box labeled Nashe Thesis, and that can only mean one thing. And that is Marshall's PhD thesis from Cambridge, The Place of Thomas Nashe in the Learning of His Time, which I'm currently struggling through. It's quite a difficult read, but a fascinating account of the Trivium, grammar, dialectic, and rhetoric, from the earliest days with Plato and the Greeks, right up to the Elizabethans. And Marshall always said, Dad always said, that the second half of that, from the Elizabethans to now, was a job left unfinished. So some scholar out there, I don't know, maybe if there is a rhetoric scholar looking at you, Dr. Sevilla, who wants to undertake the rest of that journey, that's a hell of a project. Anyway, what this is one of the copies of Marshall's thesis. He shipped it back across from England, and it was during World War II. And so to make sure it arrived, they shipped 4 different copies. and this is one of those original 4 copies, I believe. And it comes with, I haven't looked at it, but I see Dad left me a note here, which is cool. Thanks, Dad. I begged him to leave me notes, and he did, which was great. It says, top unpublished insertion, Nashe thesis, old formed Xerox, under 2 separate copies of 2 chapters. So at the top here, there's a 2-page copy of 2-page handwritten notes that I guess weren't published when the thesis was published. I think 2006, Ginkgo Press finally brought it out, followed by the copy of the thesis, and then a couple of the chapters of the actual printing. It was printed as the classical Trivium, the place of Thomas Nashe in the learning of his time. That's pretty cool. Next we have another very important document. Report on the project in understanding new media, or as it says here, Report on Understanding New Media, June 30th, 1960, from Marshall McLuhan. And this is, oh wait, there's 2 things. So here we have Report on Understanding New Media, June 30th, 1960, from Marshall McLuhan. And here we have Project in Understanding New Media, Sample of Syllabus, H.M. McLuhan. That's kind of funny. Here we have Marshall McLuhan. Here we have H.M. McLuhan. At some point, and I don't know the exact date, somebody really wanted to get into it, they could maybe track it down. Marshall gradually switched from H.M. McLuhan to Marshall McLuhan. H being Herbert, M being Marshall, M. McLuhan was his full name. But he went by Marshall. He eventually dropped the Herbert altogether, which was his father's name, Herb, and went by Marshall McLuhan. And I discovered that another way to find out about that is in Marshall's library, which I documented. And you can see his signature going from H.M. McLuhan to M. McLuhan to Marshall McLuhan in his own books. Anyway, what this is this was a report commissioned by the NAEB, the National Association for Educational Broadcasters, in the U.S., who commissioned Marshall to write basically a high school curriculum for understanding media. This was before he actually wrote the book, Understanding Media. He'd already become well known for that type of work. In fact, this would form, this is basically proto-understanding media, the extensions of man. It became that shortly after. And I don't know if anybody's taken a look at this, but, and I'm not the scholar to tell you what the reception was by the NAEB, but I don't think it was exactly what they were looking for high school students. It starts out, Preface, my discussion here concerns the resolving of the 2 kinds of research in terms of the phonetic and numerical, i.e., between Euclidean and non-Euclidean space. Von Bekesi is exceptional among scientific researchers in understanding the diversity of these methods. My own work has had to follow the mosaic pattern while keeping in mind the scope and relevance of the perspective pattern. So they got what they got, and actually I'd be very interested. I don't know the whole story about that. I'd be fascinated to hear if anybody can point me to the NAEB's reaction, what they actually did with this report. I'd be very interested to hear. This project in understanding new media, samples of syllabus begins. Teachers today face a quite different environment from the one they themselves grew up in. The new problems in school resulting from new procedures, new aids, etc. are minor. The big changes are outside in new relations between classroom and community, in the new relevance of higher education to business of production, assembly line now obsolete, in the new relation of education to politics and to world responsibilities, in the multi-language situation, and in the multimedia world in which print is no longer monarch. Unfortunately, the problems for teachers and students created by our changing environment do not disappear when they are ignored. In the same way, the unnoticed and non-verbalized aspects and effects of print, movies, of TV do not cease to work upon us because neglected. Media do not cease bothering about us nor about one another just because we do not bother about them. And it goes on. Fascinating, and I wish I had time to dive deeper into that right now. But as usual, I don't. I'm just kind of scratching the surface here, and apologies for doing that. The other folder that's up there is marked LOM Proofs, and it's copies of tetrads from the early work on laws of media. You can tell that because they're laid out with A, B, C, D instead of enhance, obsolesce, reverse, retrieve. And they're all laid out that way. So this was before Marshall and Eric realized that was quite obviously sequential, when the point of the tetrad is that its effects are not 1, 2, 3, 4, but simultaneous. They occur all at the same time. That's why they dropped the ABCD. And I think there can be some more work done to drive home that point, because they're always, and I'm guilty of it myself, I should do something about that. They're always laid out the same way, and you tend to follow a pattern when you should maybe mix it up a little bit. Anyway, this is pretty cool. It has visual space, intensifies the continuous, connected, lineal, homogeneous, static, obsolesces the resonant, multi-locational, retrieves kinetic depth perception as perspective, reverses into fragmented mosaic, the tactile. That's exactly what I was just talking about. So I guess that's it for today. We're over time. Thank you for joining me here. Next week, TMI Live 25, I'm going to dig into the actual McLuhan shelves, and I'm really excited to have you along. Please, if you're going to be in Toronto Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I'm going to be around. Come say hi. I'm going to have copies of the Autobiography for sale. They're $10 plus shipping if you want to email me. I'll also have other goodies, and if you want something, email me beforehand and I'll bring it with me. Card decks, off-prints, books, whatever. Thanks guys, much love, and have a great week. Bye.